Ever wish you could go back in time and talk to yourself? Today, we're going to have one of those conversations I wish I would have had, and I am pretty sure you are facing the same challenge with a very vital resource that if we do not manage and take care of, will have lasting impacts on our life. Hey friend, do the daily demands of family life leave you exhausted with no time for yourself? Ready to make self-care and healthy boundaries a natural part of your day, all while embracing your roles as a wife and mom? Well, I'm so glad you're here. I'm Christina, married 16 years to a neurodiverse man, mom of 3 neurodiverse kids, and many more roles. Welcome to the Moms in Neurodiverse Families podcast. Get ready to begin your self-care journey. Grab your Santé latte and listen in as we take a small step towards a healthier you. My everyday life was filled with chronic pain, a 9 out of 10. That is how I functioned, continually trying to focus on how to communicate and work with my spouse and the challenges in our marriage, working with our kids and the gaps that I saw, and I neglected myself as my pain level continued to increase. As I mentioned in previous episodes, I had the thought, if I spent more time with the kids doing therapies, if I worked harder in keeping the home clean, if I tried harder with the marriage relationship, we would get to a point where life was peaceful and then I could focus on myself. Or even sometimes too, it was waiting for my spouse to focus on me and say, you need to take time for yourself. Because I saw other couples do that where the husband made it a point of making sure the wife was taking care of herself. He made time for that. And as my chronic pain went up, eventually the next thing that came was a chronic fatigue. And our health is so critical. And when we see the gaps in what the needs of our children, the gaps in our family and our marriage, we try to fill that gap without ever taking care of ourselves, and we will get into this detriment. So today I want to talk about our health. This is one of the life needs, self-care, daily self-care, I believe, that we need to do so that we can be present and loving towards our family. If you're listening to this, I am pretty sure that you want to be a good wife and or mother that is important to you, and you get frustrated with your own limitations, wishing you could do more. And we need to have this paradigm shift. Just because there is a gap and a need doesn't mean that we need to fully meet it. Sometimes it's a process, and we can only take care of that lack, what is missing. We only can focus on so much of it. And I hope from my mistakes that you can really move ahead quicker than I did and find ways so that you are able to be there for your family. So let's talk about health real quick. And last week we talked about mind, and that's mental and emotional health. And there is so much that's with that really does impact our physical. All of this interacts. And that's the difficult part, is that our physical health impacts our mental health, and vice versa. So we need to take tiny steps in each area to make forward progress. With health, how it's used in my planner, which will be launching soon, and how I have experienced it and also worked with others, involves our physical health, it's exercising, it's healthy eating. Notice I didn't say dieting, it's healthy eating. It's also setting up our lives to be healthy, which can mean our kitchen, the cookware we use, looking at the water bottles that we have. Health is very encompassing. And what I love about this system is that how health and mind, and we'll talk about community and things that you enjoy, they all work together to build upon each other so that you have more resiliency and ability to be present with your spouse and with your kids. So first, let's jump into physical health. I've shared how I had struggled with chronic pain. I'm still in the last steps on resolving some of those issues. Chronic fatigue was a major issue of being on the couch and having my kids come up to me like, Mom, can we go to the park? And saying, well, maybe tomorrow, sweetie. I hated that answer. And those moments made me say, there's something wrong here. Now, I went first to the traditional doctor office looking for answers and was told, well, if you do this type of injection, it's going to help your pain. If you do this type of treatment, it will help your pain. And I went through over 10 different physical therapists. I finally found one that was able to actually give me help versus do 20 reps of this and this will make you better. But finding the right people, I had to be willing to go beyond just traditional medical advice and be open that if the advice that's been given to me is not helping, in fact, it's making it worse, then I need to find a different route. So I really dove into what does it mean to be healthy? And I found that the medications that said that would help with my pain, as I said before, made it worse. And if you go to episode 18, which I'll link in the show notes, I talked about tracking. And that's one of the things that came out for me was there was so much going on with my health, with the family, that I knew there were some trends that were happening, but I couldn't put my finger on it exactly because there'd be another meltdown or someone, someone were ready to get out the door and they were all dressed and then now the clothes don't work for anymore. And then there's more meltdowns. It was just a constant reactiveness. And so I couldn't be proactive in that mental state. So by tracking, I didn't do it every single day, but I did get at least 70%. And that's when I began to see over time when, like, my first note was, you know what? I had a lot of sugar today and my pain level spiked in the afternoon and it continued for the next day. And I just became very observant about how I was living life, what I was eating. And that was one of the first connections I made was processed sugar and my chronic pain level. I also made connections that the processed foods also made an impact on my chronic pain and my chronic fatigue. I also tracked my interactions with my spouse when we had positive days versus negative days. And I could see the negative days was impacting my chronic pain. All of that helped me create this picture of my health and the issues. And I began just reading and being an observer of myself and learning from others, being open to ideas maybe seemed like odd to me. And over time, by adding different supplements, I did magnesium. And this is not, I'm not a doctor. This advice here is not meant to be that. You need to talk to your own doctor. But I'm just sharing like what I have done. When I added magnesium, I did turmeric. There's different things I would add in. And I noticed there was, wow, I went from a 9, and I'm not even joking about a constant 9 level. I could only take, at this point, I was at home with the kids full time, except for a few part-time jobs that came seasonally. And doing the dishes, I could only take two plates and lift it above my head and put it into the cupboard. That was the limit of weight I could do because of the chronic pain in my body. And that was so frustrating, especially as someone who is a go-getter. And I'm guessing like you were that way too at one point. You were active and you're starting to see a decrease happening in your physical health. Taking a laundry basket. Remember talking to my physical therapist, like, I can't carry the laundry basket upstairs without being in excruciating pain. Like, how am I supposed to do this? And we took small steps working with the physical therapist, doing dry needling, doing lots of different modalities of physical therapy, changing my diet, looking at my lifestyle. Each little point along the way made a change in my pain. And then when I worked on my fatigue, I began working with a functional nutritionist who helped me zone in on, like, you're taking these supplements, which is great, but you're having these underlying health issues. We need to figure out what is going on, the root cause. And that is what I found, is that there was thyroid issues and other things that were going on that were impacting my fatigue. And so what took years to get to a point is going to take time to solve. So even if you say, Christina, but you don't understand, I have lupus, I have MS, I am pre-diabetic, or I am diabetic, and my spouse does nothing. In fact, he expects me to take care of him, even though I have such difficult health needs. And this is where, my friend, I'm going to give you some graceful, tough love. First off, I am so sorry that you are experiencing that. I have read the comments in different groups, and I've heard conversations of how much pain, physically and emotionally, that women can be in, but also how alone they feel in this. So I am sorry that you are going through that. And I'm also going to challenge you in that there is always one small thing that we can do. We are not victims. There's always one small thing that we can do. Your one small thing may be, I am going to be observant of how I feel. It may start right there at that small little step. And you jot down notes here and there. It may go that you're actually tracking how your symptoms are going. There are things that we can do over time. But if we have that mindset of, it's hopeless, there's nothing I can do, I'm just stuck in it, we can't make progress, because that mindset is holding us back. I'm not saying that your situation is not difficult and hard. And I've had people talk to me who said, no matter what, you should be able to get up and just deal with this. And they didn't understand the complexity of the situation, especially if you come from a faith-based life as a Christian. You're trying to honor your vows if you're married. And this is where I think also, talking about faith, is that sometimes church culture can set us in the wrong direction. We need to focus on, what does the Bible say just for you to be a disciple of Jesus? Let's focus on that. And you've heard me in another episode, I talk about how our relationship with Jesus, it's not about being a good wife and good mom. Let's just be a good disciple first. Everything else, throw to the side. It will come along. But let's get that stuff out of our heads so that we can focus on our health. So by not having the narratives of, well, as a good wife, a good mom, I should be doing X, Y, and Z, and then you don't take care of your health, you don't take care of your physical and emotional needs, you end up not being a good wife and mom. So my heart is that, one, let's focus on being a Jesus disciple, first and foremost, get rid of those other ideas right now. And then secondly, what does it mean to be healthy and believing? Don't believe the enemy's lies. If you're a believer, you understand this. And if you're not, negative thinking, those negative thoughts, those patterns are hurting you. And we need to find a way for you to acknowledge, this is a thought pattern I'm having. It's not serving me anything good at all. It's holding me back. And for you to begin saying, there is one small thing I can do. Just keep that in your mind. What is that one small thing? And it will add up. The millimeters become centimeters. I truly mean this. And I remember when I began to have a little bit of change in my pain, fatigue, I was crying because it's been so long. I have been dealing with this. And those who are my friends and have walked through it with me, they saw that and can testify the deep agony I had and the rejoicing I felt when I began making progress. So also, besides our physical health, exercising. Now, and this is not, I should be doing a mile walk or do a 5K. We got to bring this down to our level here. And when we start off, think of exercise as movement. What movement are you doing every day? Are you aware of that? Do you have a tracker that you use that you can track your steps? You can track how many stairs. When I was first beginning working on with my fatigue, I looked at my steps and stairs. Those were my two main goals I had. And the focus was 10,000 steps a day. Did I get there all the time? Definitely not. There were some days it was 4,000 steps or less. But I was aware of how many steps I was taking. I was aware of how many stairs I was going up and down every day. And that awareness led me to pushing it just a little bit more. So if I had 4,000 steps in one day, my goal was, okay, by the end of the week, I want to get to 4,500. Just continue, just a little push more, just a little bit more. And not for achievement or perfection, but for capacity. We cannot be there mentally and emotionally and physically for our families if our capacity physically decreases. It all works together. So I would look at increasing my steps every day, the stairs. If you can't leave the house, this is a great answer for you. Because I know some of you, you cannot leave your home. You leave your kids alone. They have to be with you all the time. And then you feel hopeless, like, what can I do? And you can also feel like, well, I don't have time to go put in a DVD that I have from 5 years ago or watch a YouTube video for exercise. Again, we need to remove the excuses. Situation is incredibly difficult. Yes, it is. But there's still one small thing we can do. And that can be the steps and stairs that you do every day. And as you work on that and your movement increases, you can look at taking walks outside. Because as your physical health improves, there will be a beautiful blessing that will happen in how you interact with others and with your family. Your ability to be more present and to help that child after they have that meltdown. To when your spouse is having a circular conversation and you can see it's about to go nuclear and you are able to use the techniques you've learned to de-escalate the conversation, to make it ended up into a positive conversation. All of this impacts all parts of your life. Now let's talk about healthy eating. I'm not focusing on dieting. The only way I use diet is that a diet as a lifestyle diet. I'm fully for that. But dieting can be tricky because we can feel pressure on ourselves of that I didn't do good enough, I can't meet it. So let's just start simple. Healthy eating. I did, going back in time, must have been 13, 15 years ago, a family member had a health scare. And they were discussing about medications they wanted this person to take. And we were looking at this and says, whoa, this is a lot of medications to take for the beginning steps of a potential health concern. And said, no, thank you, we're not doing that. And I began deep diving into food because that was one of the comments that was given. But there was just generic information given by one of those national organizations that is built upon their historic information they provide on diet. And I looked at it and said, I think there's something missing here. And I prayed about it. And the Holy Spirit guided me. And I began diving into, well, what should our diet be to be just healthy, just basically healthy. And I came across 100 Days of Real Food, Lisa Leak, her blog. She was just kind of beginning, I think, around that point of sharing her story and how she changed some of her health issues. And I loved her process and how over 100 days, you can go from being a fully processed food family to being like 80% there or 90%, because I believe, along with Lisa Leak and her blog states, that the ability to do 100% everything at home can be very difficult, and to hold such a high level can end up keeping us from trying to live healthy. So their goal they have is 80-20, 80% that things you're making at home, and there's like 20% of things that you're buying at the store, or maybe once in a while you have to go through drive-through. But over time we can increase that. So that 100 days, I just began looking at our food, and I slowly began removing stuff and changing things. I noticed changes in myself. The family did. Now from there, fast forward a couple of years, realizing like there's something more. And I think there's some foods that we're eating that were causing us some temporary issues. And so Whole30 is one of those well-known elimination diets. We did Whole30, and at that stage, the youngest one was about 2 years old and nonverbal. And one of the things with Whole30 is that you're not eating dairy and you're not eating grains, given a chance for your gut to really heal itself after being exposed to many different types of toxins. And at this point, the youngest one was not verbal. They would mostly use baby sign and could say mama and dada, and that was about it. But their next word, they would make the sign, the baby sign for more, which is putting their fingers together. And then they would say chi, chi, chi. And eventually we realized they were saying cheese. And we're like, oh my goodness, this child loves dairy, like deeply loves dairy. But we saw how dairy did cause an impact into their body, and it could slow down their digestion and sometimes even cause constipation. When we got off of Whole30, and then we had Easter, and there was a couple candies that had artificial colors and flavors in it, and the change in the children, like my husband and I looked at each other saying, what is going on? They were agitated and escalated and running around. And one of my kids was able to just verbalize saying, Mom, my body doesn't feel right. There's something wrong. I don't like how I feel. And that was it. That was the very clear point that artificial colors, artificial flavors, and then also natural flavors were impacting the kids. So if you already have a child who has difficulty being regulated and you give them food and it makes them more escalated, and even for ourselves, if I'm dealing with difficult situations and I'm eating something that can make me feel agitated, how is that helping our family? It's not. So we have become pretty ruthless when it comes to artificial flavors, colors, and the natural flavors, because we have slimmed down our food. When someone eats something with natural flavors and we all of a sudden see a humongous uptick in behavior, and it's not because of other reasons, at this point I'm able to rule those things out. We know it's that natural flavor. And I've come to the point now where I just email companies and ask them, what is your natural flavor? And if I don't get good enough answer, I don't buy the product. Going back a long time ago, I never had the time for that, so I just wouldn't buy things with natural flavor. But I have more bandwidth now. My point being is what we eat is so important. And for you to be observant of yourself, observant of your family, and start making slow changes. My suggestion is 100 Days of Real Food. There are other things that are out there. And yes, I do know about gluten and dairies, that it can be an impact. But when you're first starting off, let's just create a healthy level because 100 Days of Real Food does use dairy and gluten. And along the way, you might have to do some elimination. The goal, though, is, and I firmly believe this, once our bodies are healed, we can have organic, healthy grains. We can have organic, healthy dairy. And if you're not organic, that's okay. That's fine. But there's ways our bodies can process stuff, but we have to heal it first. So my suggestion is look at what your family is eating. Do you notice that after you go out to eat at McDonald's, there are issues with the kids? Like their digestive system slows down and all of a sudden they are not able to use the bathroom in an effective manner I'm trying to be polite here, but you can tell that that's impacted after they eat at certain fast food restaurants, or they eat a lot of processed food at home. The same thing for you. Do you notice our hydrochloric acid in our stomachs decrease as we age, which means we can't break down food, which also means that we can't absorb the nutrients which our body needs. So you can be eating food, but not getting the nutrients you need. And by taking small steps, you can begin increasing your health and your energy, which impacts your mental health and your capacity and resiliency. So that's how we work at healing our lives so that we can not being selfish, but so that we can also be carrying out the roles, these very, very important roles. Because if you don't do that role in your family, what is the impact of that? But we need to stop carrying out those roles almost to the point of being a martyr and not taking care of ourselves. We need to have the support so we can be resilient and have capacity. If this resonated with you, I would love to hear from you. Send me a message or leave me a review or comments, and just let me know how this episode has impacted you. Hey, thank you for joining me today. I pray this episode gave you encouragement to take one small step. If so, please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts to help other women find this show. By the way, if you're loving this conversation and want more encouragement like this, join my email list at bit.ly/myselfcare. That is bit.ly/myselfcare. I have a planner launching soon that will help you put all this into action in your own life. I look forward to chatting with you again next week for another episode.